Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our video broadcast, our video podcast. I want to let you know that as the moderator, my internet is unstable. Imagine that. In this age of technology, it's not working as well as we want it to. That's life. So I understand I'm coming across somewhat awkwardly and interestingly. Enjoy. And when I freeze up completely, Karen and Aubrey, well, first of all, I just want you to enjoy it. And Karen and Aubrey are going to step in. So if you joined us last month, you know that we all like to have fun. What's happening? But we are the Council of Conscious Leaders, and we're dedicated to creating the future of work. My name is Haven E. Carter, and I'm moderating today's discussion with Karen Tax and Aubrey Arms. Together, we are the Council of Conscious Leaders, the CLL. We are individuals working with businesses to evolve into a more conscious leadership. We believe to be successful, the future of work depends upon collaboration and connection. With collaboration and connection, women and people come together to have greater impact and more fun. Isolation is the enemy of health and wealth. Isolation is the enemy of success. Today, we're talking about 3 ways to create a safe work environment so you can be authentically you. The CCL is here to usher in a new paradigm of leadership where our differences and talents are celebrated, where it's okay to be messy, like today, and have that messy be useful. We'll teach you later in the segment how to be transparent about messiness and how to actually leverage it for success. So first, let's introduce ourselves. Aubrey?
Thanks, Haven. I'm Aubrey Arms. I'm a former human resources and operations professional turned champion for women leaders to reach their next level of success they desire and ditch the stress, strain, and overwhelm by leveraging their feminine leadership style. You can find me at awakenyourgreatness.guru.
Karen?
Yeah, thanks, Haven. We will keep this moving along. I am Karen Tax. I'm a former computer scientist, techno-geek kind of person turned change agent who currently works with people to create work environments that work for everyone. And I mean every single person. You can find more out about what I do at theiamway.com.
And I'm Haven E. Carter, a former Roundup marketing and business development executive who has learned to go with the flow. I have no idea how this is coming across to you all, and it doesn't matter. You can find me at havenecarter.com. I believe we all need to slow down in order to get clear, and my whole screen just fell on the floor. So,
we're slowing down.
So we do have some new listeners that have popped on in a moment. So
my internet.
we're having a good time.
Got a mind up. It's
yes, thank you.
Yeah. So just roll with it. We want to hear from you. Please put your questions, comments in the Q&A section. We will check the chat section also. We want you to use the chat section for your ideas about what you would like us to discuss in future video podcasts. So put your Q&As on today's topic in the Q&A section, and any future topics you want us to talk about in the upcoming months, put that in the chat section, because we're going to be here with better internet connection on my end each and every month. So thank you for being here. And today's topic, this is being recorded for your pleasure and giddiness and giggles later, but do please, this is an important topic, and we want you to be able to share it with your colleagues and family and friends later. So our topic today is 3 ways to create a safe work environment so you can be authentically you. Now, we target women, but this is an issue that affects everyone. And why did we choose this subject? We chose this subject because in our last podcast, we talked about the 3 keys to being heard at work. And we did talk in that session about it being safe to speak up. It's vital to have work environments where it's safe to be yourself and to show up fully. It benefits everyone when we can do that. And in talking with women and men, everyone about work, we discovered that very few of them felt it was safe to show up authentically at work. That's really sad. We believe there's a direct relationship to people not feeling safe enough at work to contribute fully and the talent crisis and poor employee engagement. Now, according to Gallup, 70% of U.S. workers are not engaged at work, and 51% of employees are actively looking for new jobs or watching new job postings. These numbers are telling us loud and clear that the old ways of doing business are no longer working. It is critical for business leaders to cultivate a success mindset that's in alignment with the times. And it starts with the basic human need for safety. So let's dive in. Karen, in your experience, what makes an environment unsafe?
Great. So Haven, I thought your internet was working better and maybe not. So I am going to go in here and talk about what makes work environments not safe. There are 2 ways that we can think about safety. We can think about physical safety and emotional safety. And physical safety, we're not going to go into that on this call on this podcast, because physical safety is more clear. It's where we know we're not going to encounter physical harm or maybe even inappropriate sexual touch or any kind of touch. So sexual harassment training kind of goes into that stuff. And that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about emotional safety, which means that we can be open and vulnerable with each other and know we can say what we want and say what's not working for us. Now, one of the things about a safe emotional work environment is that sometimes people think not being uncomfortable, like I can go in and know that I will never feel discomfort. That makes a safe work environment. And that is not true. If anything, it's the opposite, where we know that we can talk about whatever needs to be discussed. It may feel uncomfortable, and we know that we can get through that together. We have the skills to navigate what needs to be said. So emotional abuse or lack of safety starts, kind of bottom line, with dehumanizing language. So that's anything that's putting someone else down. On the other side, emotional intelligence or safety is where we can have open, honest, and caring conversations. So what can happen is we might trigger each other with an emotional charge. If something gets said that is uncomfortable for us, or it's something that we need to work on, we need to know that we can handle those triggers. So an example of this, what it might look like, is that describing another person as poison or as an ape. That is dehumanizing language, and it's not okay. Aubrey is fond of saying, don't be an asshole, no asshole rule. That would be being an asshole, all right? Not okay. On the other hand, requesting direct communication about something that may be frustrating you, that could be triggering. That could make somebody uncomfortable. And yet that's the kind of conversation that you want to make sure that you're having. It's open, honest conversation. Aubrey, can you say a little more about that?
Yeah. So just speaking to that emotional safety component in the workplace, The biggest thing that I see is that when people can't show up to work without the fear of being attacked or torn down in a verbal sense, it's unsafe. And, Karen, you talked about, speaking up and having that, that emotional reaction. But what I see is that there's a lot of people not speaking up because they're afraid. And they're afraid for many reasons. And a lot of them really are because the leaders are leading through fear. And a lot of times that is done to motivate their employees. And really it's having a backlash effect that the leadership may not be aware of.
Right.
So what leading through fear does is it creates a pressure cooker situation, and it leads people to do really outrageous things because there's just so much pressure in the workplace and there's no outlet for them. And, I do a lot of work with all kinds of professional services and blue collar workplaces. And it's really amazing to me how much I see yelling in the workplace. And somewhere along the way, it's like it's become acceptable to yell and scream at people in the workplace, but it isn't. But nobody's speaking up about it, right? And so there's this idea that if I speak up, I'm going to be verbally attacked. So it's just one example. I want to list out a few other examples. So our listeners who are attending today and maybe listening to the replay, I want you to listen with your ears to say, what of these behaviors are happening in my workplace? Or what are these behaviors I'm hearing about from my friends, families, colleagues, clients, in their workplaces? So we compiled this list together. Yelling was at the top of the list. Throwing things. Again, there's a spectrum, right? To the outrageous to the really passive. Belittling, putting down, bullying. It's surprising how much of that actually exists in the workplace, and it's being left unsaid. Nobody's really speaking up about it. There's name calling. There's teasing and joking. There's a lot of teasing and joking that happens in the workplace. It's just flat out mean, and it pushes people down. You might see when there's an uncomfortable situation that arises that people either ignore it or they might make wisecracks about it because they're uncomfortable. So those are a few examples that I have. Karen, I know you have a few more examples.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the passive side of things because that's been more of my experience. So avoiding conflict or just avoiding those difficult conversations. It could be not honoring agreements and just simply not tending to your own integrity. So that could show up with deadlines, timelines that you've agreed to, or even actions that you've agreed to take. Another thing is interrupting. So, it's just not respecting what someone else is saying and giving space for listening to happen in a conversation. And then also covering your ass work could be seen as toxic, where instead of addressing an issue or doing what actually needs to be done, you do work to kind of appease things, and it's not really what needs to get done. It's political. In what the motivation. And then one of my favorites from my Nortel days was what I call the corporate head nod. And it's where you go around the room, we have conversations. I even facilitated conversations with executives where we came to agreements, formal agreements that were documented. And they would agree and they would, and then walk out the door and do whatever they wanted, basically. So not honoring what was agreed to and not really saying what needed to be said in the room. So there is a huge cost to this behavior. And it starts with people getting disengaged and cynical, rightly so, because who wants to deal with this? And at the same time, I think it's really important to remember that this is happening because people don't know any better. They don't know how to handle things in a different way, right? And so, let's have some compassion and also look at what these costs are really with eyes wide open. Because when it goes on and on, we end up with things like stress and overwhelm in addition to disengagement. People are literally getting sick because of this. And this lack of integrity is just really big between words and actions. And this happens then between individual values and beliefs and organizational values and beliefs, and that ends up creating confusion I'm saying one thing, I'm doing another. My values don't align. My personal values don't align with what's happening in the organization, and nothing is done about it. So businesses are struggling to find talent, right? It's one of their top 3 challenges, the research show. And the reason people can't retain talent or hire talent is because they're creating toxic work environments. So good talent won't stick around, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is a huge problem. And even more important is that people really do want to contribute in meaningful ways. And they want to have purposeful work, right? Work that matters to them, that leaves them fulfilled. And so we hire them, right? But then we don't allow them to show up fully, or they choose to not show up fully and authentically and powerfully to participate in creating more healthy work environments. So Haven.
So yes, thank you. Now
Are you there, love?
Can you hear me? We need to move on to what creates a safe work environment.
Yes.
Yes. So how do we turn this around? Albert Einstein said we can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. So Aubrey, what are the 3 keys or the 3 ways to creating a safe work environment so you can show up, so people can show up authentically?
Yes, absolutely. Key 1 is declare it. Declare what it is that you're creating. In order to declare what you're creating, you need to spend some time and envision what is the workspace that you want to work in. Now, I don't care if you're the CEO or president of your company, or if you're the newest employee that's shown up. This goes across the board, regardless of your position. So spend some time and really get clear. How does it feel when you show up to work? How do your coworkers feel? Like, what's the whole spectrum? How do you deal with conflict? How does innovation and new ideas come forward in your organization? How do you deal with it when you have an issue or a mistake or something that's happened? And so declare it means speak it out. Tell everybody exactly what it is that you are creating. And you need to get your whole team enrolled so everybody is working to creating the same vision. And Karen mentioned it earlier, I am a firm believer of the no asshole rule. And so that means that you don't employ assholes, you don't hire assholes, and you don't be an asshole. And so right there, it's just like declare it. And if you see that asshole behavior, that takes us to key number 2. But before we go into there, Karen, just really briefly, do you have anything that you want to add around the declare?
Yeah, just really quickly. When an example of declaring it is we want to work to create an environment where there's no interrupting, or we notice it when it happens, we do something about it. So reminding people all the time, and then when it happens, to just gently remind people, hey, you just interrupted someone. You may not have even noticed that you did it. Let's all work together to not have that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. So it's a great segue to our key number 2, which is 0 tolerance. So in your declaring stage, you've declared what's acceptable and unacceptable kinds of behavior. And so you may declare, it is no longer acceptable to interrupt each other. That might be one example.
Right.
Socially, we have a huge culture of interruption, and that leaks over into the business place. I've yet to go to any business meeting and not have people interrupt each other.
Right.
So 0 tolerance, to use this example of no interruption, it may be that anytime anyone interrupts anyone, it is expected of everyone to speak up about it and say, hey, I don't know if you're aware, you just interrupted so-and-so, or you just interrupted me and I wasn't finished yet. And really don't let it go. When this kind of behavior that leads to toxicity in your workplace, when it goes left unchecked and nobody's speaking up about it, it's the same as saying, I condone this, I'm okay with this. And that's the big change that we need to have in workplaces, where we're speaking up and we're saying, hey, this isn't okay.
Right.
Am I
the other part I want to add to that piece is, this is a process. What was that, Haven?
Continue.
Okay. I just wanted to say that that this is a process. This is not a one and done. Expect you're going to have these conversations over and over and over again, because it takes human behavior. It takes us a while to catch up. It takes us a while to develop new behaviors. And so just know this is not a one and done. Don't get frustrated because you told so-and-so twice
Exactly.
that they need to do something differently. So
Right.
it's about practicing and learning and holding people accountable. I am just huge about accountability. It's holding people accountable to the agreement that we've collectively made, that this is the kind of work environment that we're creating.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I'm thinking we should go into the next, the third key, just because of the time. Yeah.
Agreed.
Haven, are you okay with that? Yeah. Let's go, love. So the third key is how you respond, which is to respond with curiosity, right? We could be punishing and shameful about this, but that doesn't help. It's not useful. Being curious is a whole lot more effective. So it could be maybe a conversation about why does this keep happening and what can we do to support you to have it stop happening? And then another thing is to model the way. So when you're the leader, set the example and also show people that you're learning with them, right? So that, you know, it's not about getting it perfect. It's about learning, being honest, being caring when you respond to a situation that feels like it's not as healthy, and setting clear boundaries. I'm not okay. So Haven had this great example from a client in the dental school who was being talked to abusively. And she just said to her colleagues, I don't want you to talk to me that way. That's setting clear boundaries. Really important. And then again, this teaching and learning is super, super important. So one of the things I want to mention about this is that it will get messy as you do this. It's going to get messy on the side of the person who is doing the feedback, and it's messy on the side of people who are learning this new behavior. So it's vital to be compassionate, to be learning as you go, and to be able to explain to people why we're changing the rules. Why is this important? And getting into things like open and honest conversations so that information can flow, so that you can be more effective and more productive. I mean, bottom line, that's why we want a healthier work environment. So, and this is about creating real connection between people. And real connection happens when you address these challenges and issues that create a toxic work environment. So Aubrey, could you talk about trust?
Yeah, absolutely. So on the, the vein of the third key here, how you respond, that is what either creates trust or erodes trust. So if I have the courage to speak up to you as my leader, as the president, at whatever your role is, and if you squash me, you erode trust. Because on one hand, you're saying, I want you to speak up, I want you to do these things, but how you're behaving is actually saying something different. And so it's just like, are you in alignment with what you say and what you do? Can I trust you at my most vulnerable list? Can I trust you to treat me with respect, to be compassionate in this place of vulnerability? And this is the sweet spot. This is where businesses can really dig deeper and to produce amazing results, is when you get into this arena of trust and intimacy and vulnerability.
Right. Yes, we're talking about intimacy at work.
Yes, we are. Here, why don't you bottom line this whole?
Okay, I'll bottom in. Haven, I wish you could show up on your internet, and we love you, and I'm sorry it's hitchy over there. So declare it, zero tolerance, and how you respond with curiosity and compassion, right? And I want to note a paradox here is that we need safe work environments so we can be authentic, but we also need to be authentic to create safe work environments. It's like this catch-22. So you need to go first and do what you need to do. Either do it in your current work environment or find some place where you can. And then also, when a trigger happens, not if a trigger happens, but when it does, you want to meet the energy of that trigger with a different kind of energy. If you meet it with the same energy, it just escalates. So the way you handle a trigger is to not react to it. And then the other thing is to just remember the huge, huge cost that comes from toxic work environments. It starts with being out of integrity, personally with your values and beliefs, and then aligning those collectively with the organization. You need to have integrity with both.
Mm-hmm.
That's the bottom line. Haven.
Can you hear me?
Can you wrap us up?
Yes. Do we have?
I can hear you, love.
You can. Let's see if we have any questions here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, so we can. You're really slow though, however. So just a reminder to our participants who are watching us live, if you have questions about anything that we said, we're going to hang out for another few minutes and answer your questions here live. So feel free to put those in the Q&A chat box. And then Haven actually is checking that. So Haven, why don't you check and see if we've gotten any questions to come in to answer?
Very slowly, we do have a question. What do I do if a subordinate just will not do what I ask them to do? What do I do if a subordinate just will not do what I ask them to do?
Okay, thanks, Haven. For me, I'd help. I'll take that, and Karen, you can tag in.
Yes.
So briefly, I'm going to answer this briefly. There's so much more here to say, but briefly, I would sit down and have a conversation with them from a heart-connected space. I'm trusting that I've hired somebody that is great at their job, and so something must be going on for them that they're not producing what I've asked them. So I want to go in with this place of curiosity and compassion, as Karen mentioned, and I want to find out what's going on for them that they're not producing it. Do they know that they're expected to? Are they having some obstacles that maybe they haven't shared with me yet? Have I been clear in my direction? So I want to just lean in and find out from their perspective what's going on, figure out what the obstacles are, and create a plan of action and new timelines and new commitments from them and from myself on how we get to move forward. So that's my nutshell of an answer for you.
That's great.
Karen?
Haven, anything else, or are we ready to wrap up for today?
One more question. There is one more question. Is it toxic if someone continually shows up late to my meetings? Is that considered toxic? How do I handle it?
Yeah, so that depends on the culture of your organization. For some organizations, it's perfectly fine. So, this is where Aubrey mentioned getting people involved, or you as a leader deciding what you want the culture to be. So once you decide, that's what you want to stick to. And so I was just at a retreat with Charles Eisenstein, and we had the issue of being on time come up. It was so funny. And I love the way he handled it. He just said, I can't do what I came here to do if you all aren't here. And I'm sitting here waiting, and it makes me uncomfortable, and I feel awkward. And, it was just so vulnerable and open the way he responded to it. And basically he was just saying, I want you to show up on time. Mm-hmm. Right? So I wouldn't say necessarily it's toxic. It depends on the culture that you've decided that you want.
Thank you. So let me check one more time. Doesn't look like there are any other questions. So thank you all. Remember, if you have any ideas about topics for us to tackle in the coming months, please put it in the chat box now. And we really appreciate you hanging with us. Karen and Aubrey, awesome job. Without me, I enjoyed it so much. Remember to check your email for this once in a lifetime recording, and feel free to share it with your colleagues and get all the gifts that you would like out of this little third of the box. I can't wait to see all the funny freezes. So we will be with you next month, the CCL, for another discussion on creating the future of work. If you want to reach me, I'm at havenecarter.com, executive coach, speaker, and author. Karen?
Executive coach, consultant for businesses, author. You can reach me at Karen@karentax.com.
Aubrey?
And I'm Aubrey Arms, also executive coach for women and women-owned businesses, working with your teams and culture, both in person and remotely. And you can find me at awakenyourgreatness.guru.
Thank you. We appreciate your presence and participation, and we will see you next time.
Thank you. Don't forget to have some fun out there today, okay?
Sounds good.
Play every day.
Play every day.
Play every day. All right, loves. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.